I have another anniversary review for you. This is a different type of band for me to review on this channel. The reason I chose it was for nostalgic reasons, which I will talk about in a minute. And the fact that I did fairly well in the polls I put up last month. The album is Get the Knack, the debut album by the Knack, released on June 11, 1979. The album is celebrating 45 years. You probably know this band from the hit song My Sharona. They're kind of like a one-hit wonder band, although their follow-up single did well in the charts. My personal story with the band. This was the first album I bought with my own money. It was 1979. I was only 8 years old at the time. You're probably wondering what format I bought the album on. Was it vinyl? No. Was it cassette? No. It was an 8-track tape because we had this combination 8-track player, record player in my basement at the time, and I used to love to go down there and listen to my brother's records, which were mostly The Doors, Led Zeppelin, The Beatles, and Queen. I think it was because I heard My Sharona on the radio. This was before MTV. So that was the reason. I haven't listened to this album in years. I've only heard My Sharona lots of times over the years. I know it became popular in the 90s with the movie Reality Bites. It actually re-entered the charts in 1994. So it's kind of a double anniversary for the single as well. It's celebrating both 45 years and 30 years. Get into some history with the album. At the time of its release, the album was one of the most successful debuts in history, selling over 1 million copies in less than 2 months, and it spent 5 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard 200. The lead single, My Sharona, was number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 weeks, and number 1 on Billboard's top pop singles of 19. There was also a follow-up single called Good Girls Don't. This one reached number 11 on the Hot 100, although I don't remember that song very much. I'll talk about that later. The album was recorded in just 2 weeks at about like $18,000. It was quick, it was inexpensive, and back then it was a different time. A lot of our artists were spending months and several $100,000 to record an album, but this was kind of cheap. The album was produced by Mike Chapman. He had written hits for Sweet in the early 70s, and he produced Blondie's breakout album Parallel Lines at that time. Speaking of Blondie, there was another band I used to listen to back then. My brother had the album Eat to the Beat. Such a great album. I have a lot of memories of that, but that's celebrating an anniversary, September 28th this year. So I'll get to that in a couple months. But this album, certified gold, and it just took 13 days. It was Capitol Records' fastest selling debut LP since Meet the Beatles in 1964. And speaking of the Beatles, I thought a lot of the other album cuts on this reminded me a lot of the Beatles, as they were catchy rock and roll songs, but I'll talk more about that later.
Ooh, you make my motor run, my motor run.
For a brief history of the band, it was one of those bands that was one of the biggest bands at the time of their debut. Then it kind of faded into obscurity. They were like the Guns N' Roses of the late 70s, or maybe you can call them like Boston. But the Knack was founded in 1978 with the original and classic lineup of Doug Fieger on lead vocals and rhythm guitar, Burton Avery on lead guitar and backing vocals, Preston Niles on bass, and Bruce Gary on drums. So Doug Fieger was a native of Oak Park, Michigan, and he previously played in another band called Sky. Then it was My Sharona and the album Get the Knack, and that was the subject matter of this video. But you're wondering what happened to the band after Get the Knack. So they released 2 more albums in 1980 and 1981 respectively. They were But the Little Girls Understand and Round Trip. The albums were less successful, so for that reason they broke up in 1982. Years later, the band reunited in 1986. They released their 4th album, Serious Fun, in 1991. They broke up again that following year. Then they reunited in 1994, broke up, reunited in 1996, and then recorded 2 more albums, Zoom in 1998 and Normalize the Next Guy in 2001 with a very weird cover. And Doug Fieger died in 2010, and then the Knack permanently disbanded. There was 1 more album called Rock and Roll is Good for You, the Fieger Avery demos, and that was released in 2012. Let's talk about the biggest hit, My Sharona. It was written by Doug Fieger and Burton Avery. Song's about a real-life woman named Sharona Alperin, current girlfriend of Doug Fieger. She was only 17 years old at the time, making the song a passionate ode to young love and infatuation. Keep in mind, it was the 70s, because we all know this band would have been canceled if they had released this today. The song was reminiscent of the music of the 60s. The song's main melodic hook is an inversion of the signature riff from Give Me Some Lovin', sung by the Spencer Davis Group in 1966. Doug Fleischer acknowledged that the song's drum beat was kind of taken from Going to a Go-Go, a Smokey Robinson and the Miracle song from 1965. My Sharona was certified gold, representing 500,000 copies, and has since gone to sell more than 10 million copies as of 2010. It remains a popular song, has been covered by numerous artists over the years. It was covered by the Chipmunks, and I remember I had this album called Chipmunk Punk, and I remember listening to that when I was a kid, so here's a little clip of that. So you're probably wondering whatever happened to Sharona Alperin. So in terms of her relationship with Doug, they were engaged at one point, but they never married. Despite this, they remained good friends. Sharona would frequently visit Feiger as he was dying of cancer. After My Sharona, she went on to have a successful career as a real estate agent in Los Angeles. She's currently the team leader of Sotheby's International Realty. And according to Sharona, the fame followed her throughout her life. But despite all this, she said the effect of being the subject of a popular song has been overwhelmingly positive, and she continues to work in real estate. Now for the second single, Good Girls Don't. Doug Feiger wrote the song in 1972. He claimed he wrote the song with Johnny Cash's voice in mind. The song was included in several demos as the band attempted to get a recording contract. Despite Feiger's initial reluctance to record the song for this album, Get the Knack, producer Mike Chapman convinced him to attempt one more take, and they used that one take on the album. So the song begins with Feiger playing the harmonica, very reminiscent of the Beatles' I Should Have Known Better. The lyrics, such as the refrain, she'll be telling you, good girls don't, but I do, that was considered controversial at the time. And if you read the lyrics, you'll see that it's another song that has not aged very well. The song hit #1 in Canada and reached 11 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It's been covered by a number of artists, including Ben Folds, the Chubbies, and the McRackins. I'll be honest with you, I listened to the song again. I didn't remember it that much. It sounded like an early Beatles song from one of their first albums, but at the same time, it kind of sounded like it could have been on like the soundtrack to a typical 80s teenage comedy. About the album cuts. So the first album cut is Let Me Out. This one sounds like a Beatles song from one of the earlier albums. It's very energetic with some jangly guitar sounds and a rock and roll styled guitar solo. It's a love song. It has a line, I am a prisoner of your love, so it's pretty straightforward. Then there is Your Number or Your Name, one of those love songs where a guy sees a girl from far away, wants to get to know her. It's another rock and roll song. It's more of a laid-back rocker. It reminds me of the band Weezer, and I know they wouldn't come out for another 15 years after this. Then there's a song called Oh Tara, and I'm thinking it's about a girl named Tara. And I find it strange, he's singing about two different women, like so far. There'll be another one later. Like, I'm wondering, like, how does Sharona feel about this girl Tara? I mean, like, wouldn't she be upset there's another song about a girl named Tara? Or is Tara upset that Sharona got all the attention and she was just left to be a forgotten album cut? But anyway, it's more the same. It's a more straightforward rock and roll. It's not the best. I like the bass guitar in this song. Then another song, She's So Selfish. It's a cool song. I like the drum beat. And the intro kind of takes a while to take off, but it reminded me of some of that early 80s rock and roll. Similar to the band The Cars. The lyrics are kind of explicit. It's like an early version of the song Gold Digger. The lyrics were not appropriate for 8-year-old me back in 1979. I think I just skipped all the songs when I used to listen to this album. I think I just used to listen to My Sharona like over and over. Then we had Maybe Tonight. It's pretty cool. At first it sounded like a typical love ballad. They used some interesting drums and percussion. I found it interesting. The song also has a later day psychedelic Beatles sound as well. Then we have Heartbeat, an upbeat song, and it comes on the album right after My Sharona. It's a simple rock song, has a few lyrics. It has a bouncy beat and some clean guitar tones. Then a weird song, Siamese Twins, The Monkey and Me. It was like a later day Beatles song. Lyrically, it's very weird. I think it's about some kind of addiction. He talks about a monkey on his back. And then I'm going to read like one of the lyrics. It says, sits on my back, shits on my back, piss on my back. So it's kind of weird. Then there's a song called Lucinda. That's the third girl mentioned on this album, but she doesn't seem as nice as Sharona and Tara. I mean, she's someone you need to stay away from. The lyrics paint her as a toxic individual that's going to hurt you. Musically, this is more straightforward rock and roll. And then we have a song, That's What the Little Girls Do. Second to last song, more of that 60s sounding radio-friendly rock and roll. And then Frustrated is the last song. Another upbeat 60s rock and roll song reminiscent of the Beatles from their first album. It wasn't too bad. It had a bouncy rhythm. Basically a love song about a woman who's not giving it to you, hence the title Frustrated. In conclusion, listening to this was a fun trip down memory lane. I think I don't know if I'll be going back to it anytime soon. It's a fun rock and roll album. It had a retro 60s sound, but to be honest, I had forgotten what this band sounds like. I was expecting them to sound like a post-punk band like Joy Division or something, but it was more of a rock and roll album, so it's not too bad. Let me know in the comments if you still listen to this band or if you just know My Sharona because of that song has been played so many times over the years. Check out this video right here. I've been sharing this a few times in previous videos. A list of the best rock albums of 1980. I think I have like 20 albums, and like if Get the Knack was released a year later, I probably would have made it. But I'm talking about some pretty cool solo albums like John Lennon and stuff. So thanks for watching. Please like the video. Please subscribe and check all that stuff out. I'll see you in the next one.